districts that are failing. Kids are losing out. They're not getting the education. Multiple schools and districts that are failing. And I don't remember in the 32 years, my 33rd year that I'm here, that anyone has proposed that we get rid of the group of people running that Board of Education locally because they deserve some of that responsibility. Let's talk a couple of facts. You know, look, every situation has a side, another side, and another side, and maybe another side. And people have been listening, and people have been looking at this, and let me just deal with a couple of facts with regard to this district. This is a district that is unique from any other district in the state of New York. That's number one. Not because of the problems, because the problems are in many different districts. You have a situation here where those who attend school, those that are being educated, 8,000 approximately attend public schools. 8,000. 24,000 attend private and parochial schools. That's just the way that district is. It has changed dramatically. It used to be different. The people who lived in that district were different on all sides, of all colors, of all religions. It was different at one time. It has changed. There are elections, as was pointed out. People win, people lose, but those that lose an election should not be mistreated. Of course not, God forbid. Everyone should be treated right. The election is over. We want to do the best for everybody. I assume that's what we do in our districts. You know, I got 80% of the vote in the last election.
Mr. why do you rise?
I have a question for Mr. Hikind.
I'd like to finish.
Mr. Hikind, it's not you.
The other 20% who didn't vote for me, I can't find any of them, by the way, but the other 20%, I don't look or question or ask, you know, where you stood. The fact is that people went out to vote, and it was very disingenuous, my colleague, when asked the question by another colleague, and it should have made people upset. A lot of people should have stood up. When the question was asked about the people in this district, referring to the Jews, by the way, sorry, let me change that. The Hasidic religious part of that district. The ones who vote overwhelmingly for the 7 of the 9 members. And the question was asked, are these legitimate voters? My colleague said, I don't know. Is someone questioning that these are, if there's an issue by my colleague whether they are legitimate voters, please get in touch with the Board of Elections today. And if you have specific people who are misusing the system and they are voting and they're not supposed to be voting, please make sure the Attorney General in your area pursues those individuals. But to tell us here, I think this is a little bit of an indication of what is going on here, unfortunately. The divisiveness, not willing to listen to both sides, is by answering the question, are those legitimate voters? The question was not, is Dov Hikind a legitimate voter? The question was whether those thousands of voters were legitimate, and the answer was, what, I don't know? That is really unfair, and that is really not right. Ladies and gentlemen, I went through the Greenberg report. I listened to Greenberg present his report to the Board of Regents. You should take a look at it, by the way, in particular some of the members of the Board of Regents who were pretty nasty, who spoke about them, referring to, again, a particular group in that community. The fact is that the report talks about a number of things. Everyone agrees on one thing, by the way. There's not enough money in this district. This district is being cheated. This district is not getting what it should rightfully get. The formula doesn't make sense in this district. This is not a rich district. It's being treated as a rich district. You have more people in this district than almost anywhere else. And we in the legislature, by the way, a number of years ago, you know, these are the days of budget surpluses. I remember when we had a $10 billion deficit, $10 billion. And one of the things we did, we had, I think it was called the Gap Elimination Adjustment Law. where education paid a huge price. Do you know how many dollars this community lost over 5 years to East Ramapo? You want to blame the 7 members, the 7 religious Hasidic Jews on the board? You want to blame them? This district lost close to $40 million because of action we took. We had no choice. It was tough. It was a tough year. But this district that needs every dollar, imagine what that money would have done. It would have solved all the problems. Now let me say, I want to talk about some things happening in the dimension. Let me tell you some of the crimes. And by the way, Greenberg mentions in his report, in his verbal presentation to the board, to the regents, he says specifically, now you can talk about this happened, that happened, the other thing happened. I don't have enough time to go through each and every one of those things, the sale of the school, what happened, all these things. It's easy to throw something at the wall and hope that something sticks. You know, you throw a pie at the wall, some of it will still be there after you try to get rid of it. Let's talk about some of the things in the Greenberg report. He says clearly, by the way, no one did anything illegal. And by the way, if they did, get your DA, get the Attorney General, get whoever you want, get them into East Ramapo and let them pursue those who did anything illegal. Just to throw around the term. By the way, not illegal, but what was the other word? Not a criminal, not illegal. Again, I'm not a lawyer. What's the insinuation there? You commit a crime. If it's not a crime, then it's not a problem. And by the way, I'm not saying that everything has been done perfectly by either side. There's a lot of bad feeling, as was pointed out by one of my colleagues. There's a lot of terrible things going on there in terms of the animosity. But people got elected, ladies and gentlemen. That was a great point about the Republicans. You don't get the same budget I get. You don't get the same things that some of us in the majority. What are we going to do, appoint a monitor? We're going to appoint a monitor to make sure that it's fair? Of course not. You know, just the way it works, guys and gals. And one of the things that Greenberg talks about, the 2 main things he talks about. By the way, not one single dollar are the public schools shortchanged in terms of their education. That is a fact. Let me explain. Math, English, science, social studies. By the way, when I went to school, that's all we had. We didn't have much more. We were happy to have that. Not one penny, not one teacher has been fired, removed, so there are less teachers to teach the basic subjects that are so basically fundamental. Now, I agree. Boy, it's great to have music. It's great to have all kinds of sports. It's great to have all those other things that the kids are more interested in than they are in math, science, English, and so on. I get that. But in terms of the education, we're going to do something unprecedented here? We're going to tell the elected group of people, the board elected by the people? Is there something wrong with people organizing and getting the vote out? Has that become a criminal thing? People talk about the black vote, about the Jews and the black vote. You know, they're organized. Is this America? Do we look at things like that? Hey, get your own block. Organize, work, do things, and get your block, the people who agree with you. 2 other major items not mentioned yet, I'm sure they will be. Guess one of the horrible things that this school board does. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to hear this. They spend too much money on transportation. Now keep in mind that 80% of the...
Jaffe, why do you rise?
I'd like to ask a question of Mr.
I really appreciate that, but I want to make my point, and I'll be out of time by the time you finish talking. They talk about transportation. One of the major issues, that too much money goes for transportation for the private and parochial schools. As I said to you, 80% of the kids in that school district, oh, by the way, they have boys and girls on separate buses. And that's supposed to indicate that it costs more to do that, which is ridiculous. That makes no sense. The kids go to different schools. So we talk about transportation, Greenberg report, they spend too much. It's easy to say that, but if you look at a comparison, it's very, very simple. Nothing like statistics, Nothing like looking at facts beyond the emotions of the issue, because there are a lot of emotions here. If you look at a bunch of schools within that area, small school districts, South Orangetown, Pearl River, Nyack, Clarkstown, they pay per student anywhere from $1,321, $1,457, $1,808 in another school district. Let me tell you what East Orange does. They spend too much. Did you get that? $1,000, $1,800, $1,300? They spend $827.27 per student. I don't get that. And then when you compare it to large school districts that you represent, Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, and Buffalo, it's $1,288 per student. $1,288. Rochester, $1,874. Buffalo, $1,288 and change. And this district, high transportation, spends again the same amount, $827. I don't get it. Now maybe someone is going to explain these statistics later on. Look forward to listening to that. And then another issue is special education. Okay, special education. That the school district there, the board, spends too much money on special education. And that is an issue, and that is a problem. When you have a community like the community that you have in East Ramapo, made up of people who look very different from anybody here. They even look different from me. You know, they're Hasidim, they have 7 or 8 kids, they look different, do things differently. They never go bowling with me, by the way. They don't even eat at the same restaurants I eat. They're different. They're wonderful. They're great, but they are different. And when you're going to send your child, your special needs child, to a school, they will do everything in the world, as you would as a parent, if you had a special needs child, to make sure that that child is in the proper environment. By the way, we dealt with that issue here in the Assembly chamber. We passed a bill. Most of you voted for it a couple of years ago, and then it was vetoed by the governor. But last year, thank God, with Shelley Silver, the Speaker, and the Mayor of the City of New York, we worked it out. We didn't have to pass a bill. Everything is working beautifully. No one is complaining. Because in the Orthodox Hasidic community, there are special needs and special circumstances. The kids eat a certain food. They eat only kosher. They're used to seeing certain things. They dress a certain way. Why would you want to put them in a situation where it would interfere with the lifestyle? We don't do things like that. We're culturally sensitive. We're sensitive to each other's feelings and the way we are and the way we practice our religion and the things that we do. So special education is one of those big issues that, you know, can you imagine this is a crime? This is criminal? It's not, by the way, but I'm saying this is the big issue. Not one single penny is removed from the kids in the school system. They need more dollars. That's what Greenberg said. That's what the school board says. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, I know many of you have made commitments one way or the other. I only ask you, listen to the rest of the debate. Think in your heart, you know, what is this all about? The only place in New York State, 19 million people, how many school districts do we have? The only place in New York that needs a special monitor, that is basically going to be a dictatorship, that's what it is. The school board, you might as well get rid of the school board. There is no purpose. No one has done anything malicious. No one has done anything vicious. The insinuation, by the way, maybe someone wants to introduce legislation. In order to be on a school board, we got to make criteria. There's got to be criteria. I think the sponsor of the legislation said she was not interested in that. I don't know why not. That's one way to deal with it. One of the accusations is these 7 Hasidic religious Jews, they don't understand education because their kids go to private and parochial schools.
Mr. Hikind.
I understand education as well as anybody.
Mr. Hikind,
yes,
you
please.
can come back for a second time. We have lots of speakers. you've expressed.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDonough.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wonder would the sponsor yield for just a brief question?
Ms. Jaffe, will you yield?
Yes? Yes?
Sponsor yield.
I can't hear, okay.
Yes, I will yield.
Thank you, Ellen. Just a couple of points.